The Great Hall of the Ethelgard Dominion was not designed for silence. It was a chamber built to amplify the roar of conquerors, a cavernous expanse of obsidian and bioluminescent veins that pulsed with the collective heartbeat of an empire spanning star systems too numerous to name without the aid of a cogitator. Yet, silence was exactly what hung heavy in the air, a suffocating blanket that dampened the usual hum of drone servants and the sharp intake of breath from the assembled High Lords. In the center of the room, suspended in the gravity null field, a massive holographic projection shimmered, displaying the tactical reality of the Sol system border. It was a display of overwhelming superiority, a visual testament to the Ethelgard's martial perfection, and yet, High Archon Vrax felt a cold, slithering unease coiling at the base of his primary spine. He stared at the projection, his multifaceted eyes narrowing as he focused not on the grand, glittering formations of the Ethelgard Armada, nor on the desperate, ragged line of human cruisers that burned with leaking plasma and failing shields, but on the single, solitary anomaly that drifted far to the flank of the engagement. It was a ship of grotesque geometry, a blocky, unpainted slab of metal that lacked the sleek, predatory curves of a warship or the intricate latticework of a sensor platform, appearing on the sensors as little more than a navigational hazard, a piece of industrial detritus left to rot in the void. "It has not moved," Vrax rumbled, his voice a deep tectonic grinding that vibrated through the floor plates. 3 solar rotations of bombardment, the human defense fleet is reduced to drifting slag and escaping pods, and yet that object remains stationary. Explain this to me, Tactician Calith, before I decide that your incompetence is the greater threat to this campaign. Calith, a younger Ethelgard with scales that still held the iridescent sheen of molting, bowed low, his manipulators trembling slightly as he adjusted the controls of the hololith. "High Archon, the object registers no weapon signatures, no shield harmonics. Its energy output is barely above background radiation, consistent with life support for a minimal crew and passive sensor arrays. Our war minds have designated it Priority Zeta, irrelevant. It is likely a cargo hauler or a refueling tender abandoned by the humans in their panic. To divert fire towards it would be a waste of antimatter munitions." Calith's logic was sound, impeccable even, adhering strictly to the doctrine of efficient conquest that had guided their species for 10,000 cycles. Why shoot a stone when you are hunting beasts? And yet the humans were not behaving like beasts. They were not fleeing. The remnants of their fleet, battered and burning, were holding a defensive line that protected nothing but empty space, and that silent, ugly brick of a ship. The atmosphere in the Great Hall grew thicker, the bioluminescence dimming to a blood-orange hue as the tension mounted. Vrax turned his gaze to the ambassadorial pit, where a lone human representative stood within a containment field. The human, a creature of soft flesh and fragile bone, wore no armor, only a simple gray tunic, and stood with a posture that infuriated Vrax, not defiant, not fearful, but patient. The human's name was Elias Thorn, and he had not spoken since the siege began. "Human," Vrax boomed, his voice amplified to deafening levels. "Your fleet is broken. Your colony worlds in this sector are defenseless. We have ignored your debris, but my patience thins. Surrender your command codes, and we will grant your people the honor of servitude. Continue this silence, and we will vaporize that drifting coffin you seem so desperate to protect." Thorn looked up, his eyes unreadable behind the glare of the containment field. He did not plead. He did not beg. He simply checked a small chrono device on his wrist and spoke, his voice calm, mediated by the universal translator into a flat, emotionless Ethelgardian dialect. "It is not a coffin, High Archon, and we are not protecting it. It is waiting." "Waiting for what?" Vrax snapped, stepping closer to the containment field, his shadow engulfing the small human. "Reinforcements. Your species has no warp-capable allies. Divine intervention. The universe is cold and indifferent to your prayers." Thorn's expression shifted, a microscopic tightening of the jaw that Vrax's enhanced vision caught instantly. "Waiting for the parameters of the engagement protocols to be met," Thorn replied softly. "We are a peaceful species, Archon. We value life. We value construction. We value the quiet work of building a future. Because of this, we have strict laws, strict locks on what we are allowed to unleash. We tried to hold the line with conventional cruisers to show you we were willing to fight. We tried to negotiate. But you have destroyed 70% of the Fourth Fleet. You have read upon life pods. You have targeted civilian infrastructure." Thorn looked up again, and for the first time, Vrax saw something in the human's eyes that looked remarkably like pity. "You have fulfilled the legal requirements for total war. The indomitable is no longer ignored." On the holographic display, the situation changed with a suddenness that made the Ethelgard tactical officers gasp. The blocky, inert ship, the Indomitable, did not power up weapons. It did not open missile silos. Instead, it simply unfolded. Like a metallic flower blooming in high-speed time-lapse, the hull plates shifted, slid, and rotated, revealing a core that glowed with a terrifying, impossible violet light. The sensors in the Great Hall screamed, overload warnings flashing across every console. "Energy spike detected," Calith shrieked, his composure shattering. "Magnitude? Unknown, it's off the scale. High Archon, the energy signature is not thermal or nuclear. It is gravitational. They are manipulating local spacetime." Vrax spun around to the display, watching in horror as the Ethelgard Vanguard, a glorious wedge of dreadnoughts and carrier hives, began to distort. They didn't explode, they didn't burn, they stretched. The fabric of space around the Indomitable twisted into a lens, a focused singularity of artificial gravity that seized the lead ships of the Armada. The grand dreadnought Fist of the Void, the pride of the Ethelgard Navy, was the first to succumb. The image on the hololith warped as the ship was pulled apart, not by external force, but by the differential of gravity between its bow and its stern. The hull groaned, a sound transmitted through the sensor feeds as a mournful electronic scream, before the molecular bonds simply gave up. Massive vessel elongated, turning into a stream of glittering metal and frozen atmosphere, spaghettified in an instant. It wasn't war, it was an erasure. The Indomitable sat in the center of the storm, the eye of a hurricane of its own making. It didn't fire beams of light, it projected zones of absolute stillness and zones of infinite heaviness. It was painting with the fundamental forces of the universe, and the Ethelgard fleet was merely the canvas being scrubbed clean. Evasive maneuvers. Vrax roared, his voice cracking with a fear he had never known. "All ships, break formation, retreat to the outer perimeter." But the orders were useless. The speed of light was the only limit to the Indomitable's reach, and its reach was expanding. The human Thorn remained perfectly still in the chaos of the Great Hall. "We are engineers, Archon," he said, his voice cutting through the panic of the alien command center. "We spent 3 centuries terraforming hostile worlds. We learned to move mountains, to restart dead cores, to filter oceans. We built tools to reshape reality to suit life. Did you think we wouldn't apply those same tools to defense if pushed?" On the screen, a squadron of Ethelgard heavy cruisers attempted a suicide run, firing all antimatter batteries at the glowing violet core of the human ship. The projectiles entered the distortion field and simply ceased to exist, their kinetic energy converted instantly into harmless light, adding to the terrifying beauty of the display. The Indomitable then pulsed, a ripple of distortion expanding outward. As the wave passed over the attacking cruisers, their engines went cold. Their reactors shut down. Their life support failed. The ship hadn't destroyed them. It had simply dampened the strong nuclear force within their power cores, turning their fusion reactors into inert lead. Silence returned to the Great Hall, but it was not the silence of command. It was the silence of a graveyard. The tactical display showed the Ethelgard Armada, once a force capable of subjugating entire sectors, reduced to a field of drifting scrap and powered-down hulks. The Indomitable began to fold back up, the violet light fading, returning to its guise as a harmless, ugly block of metal. Vrax fell into his command throne, his legs unable to support his weight. Scale of the defeat was total. It was not a battle, it was a disciplinary action. He looked at Thorn, expecting gloating, expecting the arrogance that Vrax himself would have shown. Instead, the human looked tired. He tapped his wrist device again. "The Indomitable has ceased operations," Thorn said. "We do not wish to exterminate you. The crews of your disabled ships are alive. We will assist in their recovery, provided you sign the armistice immediately. We have no interest in your empire, Archon. We have no interest in ruling you." "Why?" Vrax whispered, his worldview shattered. "You possess power that rivals the gods of the old myths. You could claim the galaxy. Why hide it? Why let us kill your cruisers? Why wait?" Thorn sighed, the sound heavy with a burden Vrax could not comprehend. "Because once we use this," Thorn gestured to the image of the ship, "we cannot go back. We become something else. We become the monsters you thought we were. We sacrificed the Fourth Fleet's conventional ships to buy time for diplomacy, to give you every possible chance to turn back. We prefer to be underestimated, Archon. It is safer for everyone." Thorn signaled for the containment field to be lowered. The guards, terrified, deactivated the barrier. Thorn stepped out, smoothing his tunic. "However," he added, his voice dropping an octave, becoming grave and serious, "there is another reason we do not waste resources conquering you. We are not moving into this sector to expand. We are moving here to build a wall." Vrax blinked, his mind struggling to process the shift in context. A wall, Thorn nodded, walking toward the center of the room, towards the tactical map. He reached out and manipulated the controls, zooming the view out past the Sol system, past the Ethelgard Dominion, to the dark, empty void between galaxies. The Indomitable is not a warship. It is a Class IV terraforming and hazard mitigation unit. It is designed to clear debris, and you, Archon, were debris. Thorn pointed to a sector of deep space where the stars were disappearing, not blocked but extinguished. We are running from that. There is a signal coming from the intergalactic void, a hunger. We call it the Great Filter. It has consumed 3 satellite galaxies already. We are moving humanity, and anyone else who will listen, behind a barrier of gravitational anomalies that we are constructing. We needed your territory not for resources, but for the geometry of the defense line. The realization hit Vrax with the force of a physical blow. The war, the siege, the pride of the Ethelgard. It was all meaningless. They had been mosquitoes buzzing around a construction crew building a shelter against a hurricane. The humans hadn't been fighting for land, they had been fighting for time to save the galaxy, including the Ethelgard. You intend to save us? Vrax asked, his voice trembling. We tried to annihilate you. Thorn looked at the alien leader, his expression softening into a weary resolve. We are all small in the dark, Archon. The signal is getting closer. The Indomitable cleared the obstruction. Now we must get back to work. I suggest you order your surviving ships to assist us. We're going to need a lot of metal. The human turned and walked toward the massive doors of the Great Hall, leaving the High Council of the Ethelgard staring at the map, at the encroaching darkness, and at the small, ugly ship that had just saved them from their own stupidity, and was now turning its terrible power toward the true enemy in the dark.